My name is Jim Furlong. I'd like to welcome everybody to Lifelong Learning Festival, which has been hosted here at the College of Further Education in Limerick. My name is Jim Furlong, and I'm going to show people how to use some of the charcoal techniques that I use in my practice. I'm going to aim and show the techniques that I use in achieving this portrait of the Bull McCabe. Obviously this took a lot longer, so I won't be able to achieve this level of finish in an hour, but you will get an idea of the techniques I used and how I use them and the tools I use. I'd just like to go through some of the tools I use, which aren't particularly, they're very easy to get. Most art shops will supply them. I use willow charcoal. It comes in boxes like this. You will get them in assorted sizes, which I'm going to be using today, or you can get them in very thin sizes, which I often use. I'm also going to be using hard charcoal. I'm going to use Jewett charcoal pencils. Some of them, not all of them, which are Jewett charcoal pencils, which are hard. They're basically like pencils. I will also be using various rubbers to achieve certain effects. I'm continually buying different rubbers and to try them out for different effects. I've cut this with a knife. I always pair my rubbers with a knife. Some of them I don't have to. There are different hardnesses. I've cut this into a bevel to get a kind of a sharp edge. But the most important tool I use in my practice, in my drawing, is the putty rubber. I will be using this one, which has been used. It's pretty old at this stage, so it's nice and soft. But the beauty of these is that you can shape a wide area, and you can also put them into very thin points. So this is mostly what I'll be using. I use willow charcoal because it's easy to erase mistakes, as you'll see, and it's also easy to extract some of the charcoal for highlights. I generally start off shaping my charcoal into a point with sandpaper, just like this. So it's a nice sharp point like this. Be careful not to apply too much pressure, because they are brittle and it takes a bit of practice. So I'm going to start off on this piece of paper, which is Fabriano paper. I've roughly drawn out the features of the Bull McCabe, and I'll start drawing the skin tones, and I'll talk you through what I'm doing. I'm using the side of the charcoal here, so it's nice and soft. So I'm going to start rubbing in. Always with your portrait, always identify where your light is coming from, which in this case is from my right. So you'll see now how the putty rubbers will take away. It'll give you a nice even. It'll take away some of the charcoal. You can also use a tissue to get a nice soft effect. So, and then you can build up the charcoal where it needs to be harder. Okay, so you'll use your finger a lot. Don't be afraid to fail, because the only way to avoid failure is never to start anything, and that way you'll never achieve anything. It doesn't matter. The idea of drawing is that it teaches you to look. You start looking at your surroundings. You begin to explore the world around you, and if you achieve that alone, I think it's worth that alone to be drawing. The artist Francis Bacon said that good art is the successful exploitation of happy accidents. So do not be troubled by accidents, because they're the fertilizer of good art. As I say, I'm building up, I'm starting with the features here. So these are fairly dark, as you can see at this side. So again, a lot of rubbing. Okay, there is it's pretty dark here, and there's a heavy shadow here at the side. When you're picking your paper, I picked this because it's smooth and it also has a bit of tooth in it. If you use a paper that's too smooth, you will find that the charcoal will kind of skid all over the place, and it'll be very hard to keep the charcoal on the page. But if you use what I'm using, which is Fibriano paper, it's smooth and it has a bit of a bite, but it will retain the charcoal, but you can also remove the charcoal. So I'm just building up the light and shade at this stage. So I'll show you an example of how I will be using the putty rubber. So the beauty of drawing is that, unlike say maybe painting, which I also do, it's very portable. You can have a pencil and paper in your pocket, and you can just take it out of your pocket and you can start drawing. You don't have to, it's not kind of like painting. Now this point is getting a bit too blunt for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sharpen the point again to get it into a point for these delicate features here. It's a good idea to also, when you're sharpening the charcoal, to keep it in a jar, because you can also paint with charcoal dust. It has a nice effect. So maybe in a future video or a demonstration we'll look at that. So I'm looking for highlights now. So I'll try and demonstrate good highlights now in a minute with the putty rubber. See these darks here? It's pretty dark. So the nose there. There's a nice. It takes a bit of time to get used to charcoal. Some people dislike it intensely. I find that I can usually get the effects I want, but I do make mistakes. I just show you how I would use the putty rubber here now. So if you can see this lovely highlight here, I'm going to pull out that highlight there with the putty rubber. I can put it into a point, okay, and if you see there the way it's removing the charcoal, so you get this lovely highlight, and again you can get a mid highlight there, and there's a beautiful highlight here. Drawing, the best drawing is contrast. If you have good contrast, it's, you will get a dramatic drawing. The beauty of drawing also is that the photographer, a famous pioneer of photography, Henri Cartier-Bresson, he said that photography was immediate, so it's taken in a second, but he said drawing is like meditation. So you're exploring every feature. You're exploring every feature of what you're looking at. You're slowing down your observations. You're analyzing the hair, you're analyzing the texture, you're analyzing everything, and you're completely, it's like your mind is like a camera on slow motion. You begin to see everything. So drawing is like that. And in my experience, again, I'm rubbing in there. Now, I'm working a lot faster than I normally would. So I could spend maybe, as in the drawing you saw, I could probably spend an hour on maybe a nose alone, pulling, reshaping, getting it right. So don't be afraid to, to try. I think there's an awful lot of demands made on art. When people say they're doing art classes or drawing classes like that, people expect them to come along with some kind of masterpiece. Whereas if people take up jogging or they take up tennis or something like that, they're not really expected to come home with a cup. It's just the idea of, you go jogging just for your well-being. Art should be the same. You should just do it so that you start seeing things, you start observing. All of a sudden, if you start drawing, or if you start painting, you will see everything around you in terms of a painting or a subject for a painting. You will find that you're looking at, especially if you're a portrait painter like me, you will begin to look at the texture of hair, texture of skin. How would I achieve that effect? So you start seeing things and you start observing things that you would not normally observe under these normal circumstances. There's a story, Sir Ken Richardson tells a story of a child that had a very low attention span in school, and the teachers didn't know what to do with her. And she was brought into the drawing class as a last resort, and they found that she was totally absorbed and concentrating on what she was doing. And the teacher was intrigued that all of a sudden she was so... You see the way I'm taking away the... I can remove... Drawing is as much taking away as it is actually putting something on the paper. It's a lot of the time it's what you take away. Back to my story anyway. The teacher was intrigued and she couldn't help herself, and she went over and she asked the young girl, she was only 6, "What are you painting?" She said, "What are you drawing?" She says, "I'm painting a picture of God." And the teacher said, you can't do that. Nobody knows what God looks like." Well, the little girl turned around to her and said, "Well, they will in a minute." So the thing about drawing is you can draw your imagination. You can draw how you perceive things, how you look at things, how you see the world. So the great thing is children seem to have that naturally, but we seem to lose it. I think Picasso said that everyone is born an artist, but every child is an artist and is good at art, but the trick is to remain so and to retain that. So I've crudely put in the features. So I'm getting the skin tone. So I'll get more highlight there. I'll get more of this highlight. I think I'll start. Oh yeah, this is the beauty of the putty rubber. You can put it into a point and you can pull out. I'm pulling out these lovely highlights in the eyes here. You can see there I'm pulling out. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to introduce my hard pencils. My hard pencils, again, they won't sharpen with a pencil sharpener, so you have to use a Stanley knife or a craft knife. So I'm going to start putting in some of the, I'm using the dark Jewett pencil, and I want to put in a kind of a reflected light here. It's not all dark, so I'm getting it there like that. So I'm introducing some of the harder pencils. You would use these as when you're pretty happy with what you've achieved, because I'll just kind of demonstrate. I have a piece of paper here. It's always good to have a piece of paper here to try out something before you actually commit yourself to the page. So if I show you this, it's pretty hard to take that off. Okay, it leaves a trace, whereas with the willow charcoal I can actually remove it completely, or as good as completely. So you don't really go near, these hard pencils really till you're kind of happy, with your drawing and your light and shade, and you feel you're ready to commit. So you'll get a stronger line, or a sharper line. So I'm looking again. There's a beautiful highlight here. Look for these lovely hard line. Look for hard lines and look for highlights. So try and exploit the contrast between your lights and darks. So there's a beautiful highlight here, okay? So I'm going to pull that highlight here out with my rubber. So in a case, I'm actually drawing with the rubber by extracting. I'm extracting charcoal rather than actually laying it on. Just get the... don't worry about starting off getting likenesses. It takes time, and with a landscape, if a tree is not exactly in the place it was, you will get away with it. But if you're trying to do a portrait, it is a slight fraction in the placement of a feature will change the likeness, or have the person not quite exactly have a perfect likeness. So if you're going to start off drawing, draw somebody like I'm doing, kind of well known, or a celebrity or something, rather than somebody in the family, because you know, there's expectations for a likeness. So maybe have a bit of practice before you get to that level of experimentation. But unless you have a very tolerant sitter who doesn't mind. So the bull McCabe is a great character to start off on, because and it's great for demonstrating the technique of charcoal, because there's beards, and when I get onto the second part of this video, I'll be using, you're probably wondering why he's all these rubbers here, and he only seems to be using the putty rubber. But in the second part of the video, I will be demonstrating how we're going to use those. The bull McCabe is interesting. It's obviously from the field, from a play by John B. Keane, and it was turned into a film. And actually Richard Harris was not the first choice for the role. I think Marlon Brando and Sean Connery, and I think Ray McAnally was finally picked for the part, but unfortunately he died. So I'm just getting into drawing some of the outer areas here now. he died, and Richard Harris really wanted to play the part, but he was considered maybe a bit hard to deal with, or hard to he just generally had a conversation for being difficult to direct. But Richard Harris really wanted to he really wanted the role, so he actually went to the interview dressed as a Bull McCabe, and he actually carried out the interview as if he was Bull McCabe, and he was so convincing that he actually managed to get the part, even though he was not considered one of the original people. So it's not. See this beautiful highlight here? I'll just show you this highlight here. There's a lovely highlight there. The lightness is not particularly 100%. It would need a lot of tweaking, which I did in the original. When I mean the original, I mean this one I did here. So that would have taken me maybe, I'd say maybe 20 hours, I suppose, working on and off. But what if I achieve here, if I get people to understand basically the techniques for charcoal, we'll have achieved our aim today. And the thing to do is keep practicing, and do not make expectations for yourself. I've given demonstrations and workshops, live ones, and generally the children will come up and ask you can they use the charcoal, and they'll go away and they'll be scribbling away, and without any misconceptions or being conscious or particularly worried about who's actually looking at them. And the people that with them are usually grandparents or parents, and they're much more conscious. And you would ask them, would they like to try, and they're generally conscious. So obviously something has made them lose that innocence or that conscious wish to try things. But there was one particular lady, and I asked her, could she draw her name, or could she write her name? And I did this. I put some charcoal on the thing, and I asked her to write her name using the charcoal like that, and she did. And within a few minutes she was sitting down with her grandchildren, and they were nearly struggling with her to give them some of the tools that they were using. I'm gonna knock in some of the background here, because there's beautiful white here. There's a beautiful white highlights here, and this is very dark here. So I'm going to knock in some of the I'll actually use a bigger piece of charcoal. That's the beauty of having a mixed assortment of sizes, and you can use unlike a pencil, where you're kind of confined to the point. With charcoal and pastels, you can use the side, and you're using much more wrist action. It's much more gestural. So I'll knock in this lovely dark shape here now. This is in shadow, so I'm actually going to come in a bit to the drawing here so that it isn't in as much light as the other. It's actually emerging from the darkness, but there is light in it. It's called reflected light, but it isn't as bright as this. So I'm just going to briefly lay that in. And you can even see by using the side of the charcoal, I'm actually a happy accident getting a kind of a hairy effect, a beard-like effect. So I'm going to block in there and come here, and now I'm going to continue using my side of my charcoal. Again, I'd come around here. Getting in that lovely dark. I'll just explain actually what, for this beautiful dark that I have here, I would have put this on in one coat with the charcoal using the side of it, but I would have then fixed that charcoal. This is a light spray. It's called fixative. It's for pastels and charcoal. I would have put a light spray of fixative on the first layer of charcoal, and then I would have went on that layer again with another layer of dark charcoal, and you get that absolutely midnight black, which is absolutely beautiful. And again, with a lot of my drawings, again, I'll just explain, for that beautiful dark in the eyes, I would have fixed the first layer, this layer, okay, and then I would have sprayed again, and then I would have went darker again, and in areas like that I would have went darker again, and then of course my final fixture. I'm going to go into a bit more detail now with the highlights. See these highlights here, the eyes. The white of the eye, people have a misconception and think the white of the eye is actually pure white. It's never pure white. The only thing that's really ever pure white is the highlights of the eyes and maybe the teeth. So again, there's a bit of a line there. Again, this is not totally white. There is a kind of a white highlight here, so I'm going to knock that out. So I'm going to knock that out. Let me see now. So it's basically to keep refining and refining and refining till you get where you want to go to. So I've a very hard dark transition there. It's too stark here. There's actually a middle tone in that nose, so I have to go back in to get that middle tone. So there's actually dark, middle tone and highlight, so I need to go back in. So you're continually, this highlight here is too bright, so I need to, on the drawing, so I need to knock that back. This area isn't quite dark enough. That shadow is coming much more into the eye, so I have too much light here. So you continually working on the drawing till you get. I'm going to go back in to my hard pencils here for these harder lines. Okay, so much harder lines here. Again, that needs to be again, this is too bright here. You can see it's too light on my drawing here. Showing you how I create skin tones. We looked at how we create skin tones using the rubber. Basically what I've used so far is I've used practically completely all the putty rubber, because as I said, you can use white areas, you can put it into a point. I'm now going to explore how I would do the beard, and you will see that I will use a lot more of the rubbers and the various rubbers I have. As I said, I just go through them again. I have a plastic, it's kind of a, I'm not sure what you'd call it, but it's kind of hard plastic. I have these ones which kind of have a bevel point on them. One I've cut, a medium textured, you know, it's flexible rubber. You can also use what I've cut off there. You can also use that. So I'm just going to demonstrate how you would use those. So the hair is ideal for that. So I'm going to block in some of this hair here now. And I'm just going to show you. So if you see these textures, again, I can't emphasize enough that sometimes drawing is more about taking off than actually putting on. So you'll see, do you see the way I'm getting these beautiful, see that? The beautiful kind of lines. See those lovely sharp lines. I'm not drawing lines on with charcoal. I'm actually removing the charcoal. So I'm using the sharp edge of this. It's a bit too highlight, so I go back in again. Okay, I go back in again. I can go back in with my willow charcoal, soft charcoal. That's actually willow charcoal, yeah. Rub again, okay. Come back, get a few extra highlights where it's emerging into the light from the dark, okay. Go back in again. Up here where it's really, really bright, I'm actually going to come in here with a very broken, a very blended line. You can barely see the line. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to see these lovely sharp spiky bits. This is my pointed rubber. It has an edge on it. So I'm breaking into the very dark background, if you can see. I'm breaking into that very dark background. Come in here again. So you're getting a lovely, you may find that you have to keep sharpening. You might find that you have to keep sharpening the bevel, but I'm getting a lovely, you're getting a lovely kind of, you're breaking in to that dark background. You're breaking into that dark background. You possibly have to clean the top of it to get rid of some of the charcoal, so you get it nice and light again. Okay, I'm going to come back in with my potty rubber again to get bigger areas. See these other bigger areas. Back into my, this time I'm using these charcoal pencils. They come in dark, medium and soft, so I'm using the medium now. So again I'm pushing that in. This needs to be a bit darker up here, I think, so I'm going to push it in. So it's very instinctive. You know, you kind of, as you draw, the drawing will almost tell you what needs to be done. You'll find after a while, it's kind of like driving. You know, when you start off driving, you kind of, if you're somebody teaching you to drive, you're kind of waiting for them to say, go on your accelerator, you know, go onto the clutch, go down into first gear, and you're waiting for them to tell you. And then after a while, as you get used to driving, you find that you're holding conversations and you're kind of listening to the radio, because your hand is kind of an automatic pilot, and you're just doing the gears almost instinctively without thinking. See the lovely frayed edges you can get there with the, as you're going into it, you're getting, you know, it's these edges that you're getting. But anyway, after a while, you're learning to drive, and you kind of almost instinctively doing it on autopilot. Well, drawing becomes a bit like that after a while. You just, it's almost as if the drawing is kind of telling you what you need to do, and your hands are kind of working spontaneously. I think musicians call it finger memory, where you'd see musicians. I have a few friends that are guitarists and bouzouki players, and they'll nearly be holding conversations while they're playing the notes, because they call it finger memory. And I think the same type of thing applies to drawing. I think you get the same thing after a while, but it takes practice. It takes practice. If I'm sure if this was a music video and I was teaching someone to play the guitar, I might give them the notes and they'd go away practicing the notes awkwardly in the beginning, and then as they practice, they would get much more fluent at it. It's the same with drawing. You're not going to produce a masterpiece straight away, you know. It's not going to come, well, unless you're an absolutely Picasso or some genius like that. But for us ordinary mortals, it's going to take time. And Scott Adams is a famous guitar. He's a famous cartoonist, and he says, you know, most of art and creativity is mistakes, but the art is knowing which ones to keep, which mistakes to keep. So, you know, don't be afraid of making mistakes, because maybe what you consider a mistake might be a technique that makes your work unique and becomes your style. So again, I'm really, in this part of the beard now, I'm really, there's a lot of kind of intricate highlights, very thin highlights of white as the light is hitting the beard. So this is where these rubbers come into their own, because you're getting these, you can really pull out these lovely highlights again. So you can really pull out. I'm going to do a bit up here in the bit which is kind of in shadow. A lovely shadow. These shadows, in drawing there's descriptions of shadows that are something that's in shadow. So the head is in shadow. This here under the nose is something that is a cast shadow. So like my hand would be casting a shadow. So this is a cast shadow under the nose. So I'm going to work away here with the thing again. This particular sharp, and it's, I suppose it's a strange thing to be saying, but I've been drawing all my life, and I've been drawing charcoal a lot, and I could say that I've developed an artistic rubber fetish, because I'm forever buying particular rubbers and trying them, and every kind of rubber, the most, and sometimes it's the most unexpected, you know, a rubber that you might get in a toddler's box that will give you a fantastic effect that you might have got with something you bought in some you know, very expensive art shop. You'll find that you'll pick up something. Could be a rubber washer off a washing machine or something like that, that you cut into a shape, and you find that that's actually giving you beautiful highlights that you know that you mightn't have got with anything else. So I'm going to come down here again. There's a bit of a shadow. It hasn't got the sharp finesse that of the one, to use a phrase, that I baked earlier, because that takes time. Well, it takes me loads of time anyway, and I haven't really got the time. But this is the method I use to get it. I bake much more slowly, okay, much more slowly, you know, taking a lot more time and a lot more care, but I'm using the same tools. And if you go onto my Instagram page, Jim Furlong Art, you will see very, very realistic looking drawings of people, but I'm only really using these techniques. So I'm going to try and get some of these edges here. So I'm going back to, I'll go back to this little bit of a cutting from a rubber, and I'm not saying, oh, for this I want that, for that I want. Generally I'm picking things up, trying them. If they don't work, I'm laying them down, picking something else up and trying them, and it's probably a lot less consciously done than it actually looks. But I'm just kind of picking things up, trying it, working away, trying, picking something up. Something works then, and you decide, yeah, I'm going to continue using that because that's working for this particular portrait. So you might end up using, for the whole portrait, you might end up using that, and you might end up using that. Or for another particular portrait, you might find that you're using 6 or 7 rubbers, depending. So, but if you don't have them there, then you can't use them, needless to say. I'm interested in these edges along here. Okay, these edges along here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a zigzag line here, okay, and I'm going to rub it in again, and I'm going to make a sharp, I'm going to try and create this, get a very sharp edge, and I'm going to try and get that zigzag. I'm getting a very jagged. What I will do, if people are interested, I'll leave a list of on my Instagram page. I will leave a list of all the tools I've used for this demonstration, just in case people, for some reason, aren't in a position to record or write what I'm using. So I will leave a list of all the stuff I've used. So again, now if you see here, this particular beard here, this part of the moustache that's coming down here, is surrounded by kind of dark and medium, and as for some reason the light is catching there. So I'll go back in and exploit that lovely light there. So I'm going to come in here with my, and I'm going to try and capture that. If for some reason you find that you're losing your lights, what you can do is you can use your fixative at the end, and then these Jewett charcoal pencils come with a white pastel pencil. So when it's fixed, you can go back in on top and you can start drawing white lines on top of the darks. And because the charcoal is fixed, it won't dirty it and you'll have pure white lines. You can do that, and it can happen that you won't get the maybe the line that the actual pure as white as you can. See, there's a lovely white kind of line there, a white whisker there. Those are the things that attract me, so I'll just pull it out like that, just bring it around here. That might be something. I'm not kind of quite happy enough with the whiteness of it, so maybe when the drawing was fixed at the end, I would come along with my white pastel and I would draw that white line, that white whisker. Or you could use maybe a thin paintbrush to do that as well. Now I'm going to give this side of the face. Now this side of the face is really getting light. And as you know, if you notice, this side of the face, the hair and the beard is kind of fading into the background, whereas this side of the face, the white hair, has the strongest contrast between light and dark. So this is the lightest and this is the darkest area. This is the area where you have dark and light together at their most contrast. So I'm going to use that now, and I'm going to pull away here now to achieve that. And again, I'm going to use my my rubbers to go into that dark background, to really pull out that light. So I'm using a lot of pressure here to pull out that light. So it's really, I'm really pulling. This time I'm actually going to go back in with the dark pencil for this area here to get these sharp edges as well. So I'm going to start pulling out these sharp edges here. I have a line there, right? It's too hard a division, so you can barely see the division between the white of the beard and the skin. So I'm going to get rid of that hard line there. So as you can see, it's continually redefining, going back, redefining till you're happy. You could ask the question, when do you stop? That could be the hardest. That can be actually the hardest part of drawing and painting. You can have a great result in a painting, and then all of a sudden you just put on one brush stroke, two brush strokes too much, and you kind of ruin the whole spontaneity of the whole painting. But I think only time and experience can teach you that. And I can honestly say that in all my years of painting and drawing, that I have actually learned more from my bad pictures, or the ones that turned out not so good or I wasn't happy with, than the ones that I was actually happy with. You'll learn more from the paintings that give you the most trouble or you're the least happy with. You'll actually learn more from those paintings than you would the ones that go easy for you, because it's very easy to deal with success. It can be harder to deal with and manage
mistakes and failures, but having achieved your management of mistakes and failures, you actually become a stronger artist, and I think a stronger person. I think Picasso said that drawing and art blows away the dust from ordinary life. So, you know, I've been teaching people, and they've told me funny stories. Like, you know, I think one lady, she was going down the garden. I think she was going to get, I think she was bringing in clothing from the line, and she'd started painting and drawing, and she saw some lovely effect of light or something on a tree that she never noticed before, never took much notice of before, but the way the light was hitting the tree that particular day, it really inspired her, and she forgot all about it. And she went in, got all her paintings, got all her drawing, did a sketch of the tree. At that particular night, then she went in, finished the painting, and then she was in bed that night, and she heard rain, and it was lashing rain, and then she realised that she had never actually brought in the washing she was actually going down to. She forgot about it. She got so inspired by what she saw. So you will begin to see, you will begin to notice things. You will begin to see all the things that we edit out in life, all the things that when that we're in too big a rush to take notice of. You will find that those are the things that actually become the most important and the most inspiring. Those are the things that you begin to notice and look at anew. I mind my 2.5-year-old grandchild, and it's very interesting to be kind of in the company of a child for a long period of time, because they see the world anew for the first time. And I remember one particular time she was fascinated looking at something. It was a play of light on the corner of her room, and she was just staring at it, and I was kind of wondering what was she looking at. And I just started looking at what she was looking at, and it was actually the curtain, a lace curtain or a neck curtain, blowing in the wind, and as it moved, it let in the light and then stopped the light, and it was fascinating to watch it. But I would never have noticed that before. So really, you have to go back and start looking at the world like a child for the first time. And I think that will make you. I think that's the success to being if not necessarily a brilliant artist, a much more contented person. I think mindfulness has been done by artists and people drawing and sketching for hundreds of years before they called it mindfulness. So drawing is another kind of it's another type of meditation or mindfulness. You're in the moment. Many's a time I've sat down to do a drawing for 10 minutes, maybe to fix something, and 2 hours later I've looked up and time has just slowed down, and I've just got so absorbed in the drawing, and you forget all your concerns of every day. So for that alone, it's worth doing some drawing. Say it's taking shape. I'll just go through it again. These are various rubbers. You're pulling out. You're actually drawing. You could say with the rubber. The potty rubber, you can, as I say, you can pull into very sharp pencily points to pull out, or you can rub away whole areas. So it's probably the best tool. You will find, if you go into an art shop, you will find compressed charcoal which is basically sticks of what the pencils are made of. It's, some people use it in conjunction with the willow chalk I'm using, or they use it just on its own. The only trouble I find with willow chalk is it's very hard to erase. It's very hard to do things like this because it pulls, it stays, it's very hard to remove the charcoal, which is really what my technique relies on. So I think the best thing to do is just do it, and just decide you're going to do it. Again, all you need is, as I said, you know, some people prefer just the sticks, the pencils on their own. Some people prefer the sticks like me, but they're very easy to get. They're very easy to use. If you find charcoal, you know, a bit cumbersome, get a pencil. You know, you can, while you're waiting to collect somebody at a station, or while you're waiting maybe to collect children, or maybe you're waiting for some particular reason you're waiting, get out a sketch pad, or just get a small one, but something that fits in your pocket, and just start drawing away. Draw everything. Just draw what's ever there. When I go away on holidays, I have a small sketchbook with me, and I've no interest in going into the beach, or I've no interest in going into the sea. I just draw the people around me. Whoever sits in front of me, I just draw them. Whoever's standing up at a particular street, if I'm waiting for somebody, I'll start drawing them. They're not masterpieces. They're not fantastic, but they do. It almost works like a recording machine, because when I see them years later, I'm actually transported back to the place I was when I drew them, because again, time has slowed down, and I was actually so alert to what I was looking at that it has actually created a pattern in my mind. So I go back, and it's very, very portable. The great thing about drawing people is people will generally, I suppose rightly so, object to you taking their photograph. But generally, if you're sketching away, people don't take any notice. Airports are great places to do it. Airports are great. You're sitting down, you're waiting for a plane that's an hour late, and you can just sit down and draw the people around you. I think I conclude at this stage now, and I hope that you've gained a basic understanding of the technique I use. I just refer you back to as they say, the one I baked earlier, which took a lot more time, and I had a lot more kind of space to do it in. But these are the techniques that I've shown you. These are the techniques that I've used over the years. So thanks very much for joining me, and I hope I've entertained you, and I hope I've given you some knowledge and inspiration to carry on doing some kind of drawing or art.